The story starts off with the protagonist Orun sitting quietly at his desk about to start the preparation for his next exploration, when all of a sudden, he's kicked out of the hero's party. Orun was only allowed to stay because they were childhood friends from the same village, but his abilities were lacking. Flashing back to 8 years ago, Oliver and Orun formed a party and gained enough reputation to be known as the Heroes Party. They were known as the S rank party that had reached floor 94 out of the 100 floor dungeon, which was the furthest anyone had ever reached. The reason Olivar was kicking Orun out was because of the importance of having an enchanter who could utilize support magic, which was brought to attention during the subjugation of the dragon last month. And Orun's support magic was obviously lacking compared to the other S rank parties, but Orun retorts, saying that he was initially a swordsman and became an enchanter to help support the party. Orun tries to make excuses, but the heroes' party had already found someone to replace him. Orun is saddened that they threw him aside that easily, and as he goes to leave, the mage insults him, saying that his sword and magic skills were A rank at best, and tells him that someone like him is called the Jack of all trades, master of none. The next day, Orun sleeps in. He wakes up in the afternoon, waking up realizing that he doesn't have any money issues for the time being, but will need money eventually. So he thinks of 3 methods to make money. The first being exploring the dungeon as usual, second being employed by someone else, and third opening up his own store and doing business. But as he was used to going into dungeons, the first option was the best, and he decides that he will return to being a swordsman and go to a recently resurfaced dungeon. Before entering the dungeon, he's cautioned by the head of the Dungeon Management Guild staff that there won't be a problem regarding the rules, but it's a dangerous place and he'll be better off with the party. But after showing her his guild card, she notices that he's a 94th floor dungeon clearer and apologizes. Upon entering the first floor, he comes face to face with a horned rabbit. It's a relatively low-level monster, perfect to train up his dull senses. Upon reaching the 3rd floor, the numbers are gradually increasing, and so he decides it's time to test out his support magic as well. Support magic are spells that mostly buff physical and equipment stats, and so he casts Amplified Strength onto himself and charges at the goblins, cutting through them within minutes. The only issue with support magic is that it only lasts for a certain amount of time. Because of the setback, Orun has to calculate exactly how long and when his buffs are coming off to make sure he can reapply them in time. With a combination of support magic and swordsman skills, he should be able to solidify his place in most teams. But thinking back on how he was called the Jack of all trades and master of none, he decides to become the very best. At the 7th floor, he reaches a teleportation crystal. By recording and tapping the guild card on the crystal, he can teleport to the entrance of any dungeon safely. At this place, he overhears another party leave one of their party members behind as bait to run away. This was another party's problem and none of his business, but after experiencing being left by his own party, he feels disgusted and says that he despises people like them the most. After asking where they left the girl, he immediately runs off to save her. We cut to the girl desperately using her magic to stop the ogres. When Orun finally reaches her location, he tells her to focus on her magic barrier. By using his own supporting abilities on himself, he cuts through all 13 ogres in a flash. Orun then casts his heal ability on the girl just in case and helps her leave the dungeon. Later on, she introduces herself as Sophia Cloud and asks him out to dinner. He notices the emblem on Sophia as it belongs to a major explorer clan, the Silver Rabbit of the Night Sky. At the dinner table, a person is already sitting there waiting. This was Selma Cloud, Sophia's older sister, a person Orun was already familiar with. She was the leader of the S-rank party, the first team of the Silver Rabbit of the Night Sky. Because of the collaborative subjugation last month, and as Selma as their leader, it was made clear how lacking his supporting abilities were compared to the others, and therefore kicked out. Eating dinner with the sisters, Sophia notices that both Selma and Orun already knew each other, and it's later revealed to Sophia that he was part of the hero's party, but Orun corrects her, saying that he's no longer part of the party, and thus now a free agent. Pouncing on their opportunity, Selma asks him to help him in a teaching expedition. The plan for the expedition is for a few rookies to climb with an A-rank explorer to the 51st floor of the southern dungeon within 3 days. A reckless schedule, but Orun picks up on the strategy. They plan to bypass the boss that appears every 10 floors by distracting it. This will allow for the rookies to grind on higher level mobs without having to fight the bosses, effectively leveling them up way more quickly. Orun initially declines the offer, but is persuaded to reconsider, and he accepts only on the condition that they recognize him as a swordsman and not an enchanter. After dinner, the sisters walk back to the clan headquarters, and Selma reports 2 incidents to the captain. The first being Orun and how he parted with the hero's party. The captain recognizes that the hero's party would not be able to climb without Orun, and the party would fall apart. The second was Orun accompanying them on the teaching expedition, but the true goal was to bring him onto the first squad of the team she leads, but he's unfortunately an enchanter, not a swordsman, and so they decide to leave the conversation at that. The next day, Orun visits the old Gramps at the general store, who he endorses, and apologizes that he won't be able to further endorse his store due to him leaving the hero's party. The grandpa, who has taken care of Orun since he's moved in, consoles him and tells him not to worry. The same evening, he meets up with Selma to discuss the expedition plans. In a flashback, we find that Olivar and Orun grew up in the same village and they used to spar together regularly. Orun, who was known to be a prodigy, was being passed by Olivar, who was known as somebody worthy of the title of hero. The two men watching decide not to separate the boys, as the prodigy could serve as a shield for the hero. Olivar, after beating Orun, starts to yell at him, claiming that Orun was even trying, and storms off. But it wasn't that Orun didn't want to win. Orun just didn't want to accidentally kill Olivar. Shion, another childhood friend, walks up and claims that she knows Orun's true power, and that she'll definitely catch up to one day. Waking up from this dream, he can't remember who she was. In fact, he can't recall anything at all. Cutting back to present day, we find Orun waiting at the entrance of the Southern Great Dungeon. There he meets Selma and Sophia. After complimenting Sophia's clothes, Selma accuses him of flirting jokingly. Selma notices right away that Orun was standing away from the rookies and tells him to follow her. But based on the debriefing he received last night, Orun can't help but feel uneasy, because the plan revolved around 5 leaders leading 2 rookie parties each, with the 2 parties fighting monsters on a rotational basis and the leader stepping in only during emergencies. So his job would be to supervise 2 teams that will take turns fighting monsters and would receive 2 gold coins in advance and 10 gold coins once they finish, an absurd amount for this mission. Being introduced to the other leaders, he finds out that there are 2 defenders, 1 healer, Selma the Enchanter, and himself as an attacker. He's then introduced to the rookies as someone who's reached the 94th floor and was part of the hero's party, and everyone is amazed and pumped to get started. This was Selma's way of relieving the tension. After being introduced to the team he's in charge of, he asks them all for their name and position. First, Logan confidently introduces himself as the leader of the 10th squad and an enchanter. Next is Caroline, who introduces herself as a defender, but is only wearing light armor, and she claims that she's an evasion type defender. Orun then quickly notices that the group he's leading is full of problem children. Finally, Sophia reintroduces herself as a magician and rear attacker, and Orun quickly thinks that this mission is going to be harder than expected. Thanks for dropping by. If you like this content, please feel free to like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.